Okay, yes, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share the screen. So last week we talked about hurt and kind of defined it as to feel or suffer some bodily or mental pain or distress. And then we talked about this process of addressing the hurt. And that was, prayer is undergirding the process and being able to really articulate what the hurt is, because the better that we are able to articulate what the hurt is, then the better we are able to address what the hurt is. And then name the pain, whatever that hurt is, and the associated emotion. And we talked about the feeling wheel last week to help us to be able to accurately name whatever emotions that we are dealing with, and then name whatever our response is to the pain. What is that? What kind of behavior do we have? And the desire, what do we want to happen? And then there's continue again throughout that process of prayer. And we spoke on, give a couple definitions for healing. Is to make healthy, whole, or sound, to restore to health, to be free from ailment. And another definition is to bring to an end or conclusion as conflicts between people, and I would say individuals or groups, usually with the strong implication of restoring something that was former, to reconcile. And we again talked about that healing is a process. It's a process that, for the most part, is not overnight. Sometimes their healing can happen in an instant, but a lot of times it's a process that we have to choose to engage in to get to where we want to get to. And it takes work. It takes some work for the healing to happen. And so I want to start out with this quote tonight. Life has meaning only in the struggle. Victory or defeat is in the hand of God, so let us celebrate the struggle. And struggle in this sense is, being hurt and moving from hurt to healing, because it's not always an easy process, depending on what the hurt was. It depends on who are the individuals, the persons, or the groups that are involved with the hurt. It depends on the context of the hurt, and so we know that it's in God's hands. However, there is a struggle, and as this quote kind of says, we can even celebrate in the struggle. It's kind of like one of the Christian cliches we talk about is said, don't wait till the basically don't wait till the prayer is over. We can shout now. Don't wait till you get your answer. Don't wait till you get your deliverance. Don't wait till you get the blessing. We can shout now. Philippians 2:1-2. If then there is any encouragement in Christ, any consolation from love, any sharing in the Spirit, any compassion and sympathy, make my joy complete. Be of the same mind, having the same love, being in full accord and of one mind. And so when as this writer writes this, particularly when I see the word be or being, that tells me that it's not static, that it's kind of ongoing, that it's evolving, because there is no one or two things that we do to be of the same mind. And being of the same mind is not always an easy process. I still think God has a sense of humor, because God created us all differently. And then God allows us to have all different experiences. And then God, directs us to, some of the same places, whether that be a marriage or the same job or the same church. And the word is calling for us to be of the same mind and to be of full accord and of one mind. And that's not that's not an easy process. There's some things that we can, easily agree on, but then when we're talking about when pain or hurt or discomfort, frustration, trust has been broken, any of those things happen, it takes work to get to that place. And sometimes people think just because they say the words or ask for forgiveness that is the end of the process, and that generally is not the end of the process. And even when the person that is receiving the forgiveness agrees and says yes to the person that is asking forgiveness, it still is not the end of the process. So the scripture calls us to be on one accord, be of one mind, similar to the same thing in 1 Corinthians 1:10. Now I appeal to you, I'm begging you, I'm asking you, my brothers and sisters, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, that all of you be in agreement, that there be no divisions among you, but that you be united in the same mind and the same purpose. And so that's kind of what God wants us to get to. But we also have to be aware of that there is a process to get to that, particularly when hurt has introduced itself. And so tonight, I also want to talk about this Sankofa bird. And I'm wondering, has anybody seen this symbol, this Sankofa symbol before?
What did I say?
I have.
Okay. I'm sorry. I stopped sharing. Somebody said I have?
Yes, this is Aisha. My old church, I went to Union Temple. Pastor Willie F. Wilson, he used to teach on, it was very Afrocentric focused, and Sankofa, he told us, means go back and fetch it. And he used to do a whole series every year on the principle of Sankofa, understanding your past in order to be able to move forward in your future.
Aisha, I'm gonna sit back. You go ahead and take this, girl.
You know what?
No, it's good. Has anybody else been introduced to Sankofa? Okay. I'm so thank you, Aisha. That was very good. I mean, it's not a complex principle, but I want to share the screen again so you can kind of look at this symbol, and then I just want you to look at it and get some thoughts on it. What do you see? I'm gonna let you see it for a couple of minutes. Then we're gonna come back and talk about, what do you see? What visually do you see? What sticks out for you when you're looking at this particular symbol? So just take a couple of minutes to kind of look at it, get some. How do you interpret that, and what is it revealing to you? And since we're recording, I also put up there the website that I took this from, so you can, if you want to go back. But it is definitely all over the internet though too. Okay, so let's have some discussion then on kind of what is your interpretation of this, and what do you see? So Aisha, since you are the teacher, I'm the teacher's pet. We're not going to answer, okay? So somebody tell me, what did you see? What are your thoughts? How did you interpret that symbol?
For me, Dr. West, two things jumped out immediately. Number one, a looking back, and then number two, a looking at self. So those two things kind of immediately struck me, looking back and looking at self.
Good stuff. Good. Thank you, Pastor. Someone else.
I saw a peacock with many colors.
Okay. Anyone else? I promise you, I'm not going to give an A or F for this. I promise you. Everybody passes. Nobody fails.
I felt like, I don't know if you can hear me. There's a lot of noise in my house. Sorry. It looked like maybe there were like 3 rows, like that could be crops, and that forky looking thing, like some type of machinery that it would help to get the crop out.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so let's see.
Harvest. Harvest.
Harvest. That's a good word. So this slide kind of gives us some more insight into what the meaning of the symbol is. Sankofa, translated from the Twi language to English, means to return and get it. San translates to return, Ko translates to go, and Fa translates to look, seek, and take. So Sankofa is kind of going back and getting what is the best to bring that forward for the future. It teaches that whatever we have, that says forgotten, it should be forgotten. I'm gonna have to get on my secretary. Y'all see my secretary spelled that word wrong? It should be forgotten. This says forgone. So I'm gonna get on my secretary. And just so you know, I am my secretary. It teaches that whatever we have forgotten, lost, been stripped of, or forgotten can be revived, reclaimed, preserved, and caused to prevail. So when we look at the symbol, the feet are face forward. So the feet are face forward, and then you can see the head is turned back. So the head is turned back to say, let's go, let's look back to see what it is from our past that we can bring to the future. What is the best of the past? What happened in the past? What occurred that we left back that we can bring to the future? And the bird is holding an egg in its mouth, and the egg represents the future. And so the feet are going forward, facing forward. The head looks back, and the whole thing is let me go back, get what was left behind, so that we can bring that forward and apply it to what is going on now, how we can use that in the future. And so what I want to talk about is how can we apply the Sankofa principles in the healing process. And so I want you to think back, so when we talk about hurt, there are a couple of questions we want to think about. Because a lot of times hurt takes something away. And so in terms of the Sankofa principles, it's what can you look back and determine? What did the hurt take away? What did the hurt dismiss? What did the hurt break? People use that term broken, I'm broken. And so what did that hurt break, and what did that hurt block? What did that hurt stop from happening? And it could have been, you were in school and you desired to be a doctor, and then somebody told you, you're not smart enough to be a doctor. It could have been that you wanted to play a certain sport, and then somebody told you weren't good enough, or somebody, you wanted to do something, somebody said, you weren't tall enough, you're not short enough, whatever it may be. What is it that the hurt dismiss? What did it block? What did it take away? What did it break? And determine what that is, and then decide to bring what was left behind forward, and determine how you will use it. To bring what was left behind forward and determine how you will use it. And so this is kind of taking that principle of Sankofa and applying it to the healing process. Because for me, the healing process is not only that, you did the forgiveness and you received the forgiveness, but the next step is, taking that which was whatever the hurt took away and still putting it to use. Because sometimes the hurt will stop us in our tracks. It will prevent us from going forward, prevent us from moving forward, preventing us from being all that God desires for us to be. And sometimes it will, it instills fear in us. And so sometimes the hurt takes away our peace, it takes away our motivation, it takes away our desires. And so we have to decide what it is that it was, and to bring that forward and how we can use it for the future. And then the other question is, what is the lesson learned from the past? So as you look back, as you reflect, as you think, what is the lesson learned from the past that you can apply in the future? And so this is kind of what I want you to think about. We're going to do a few minutes in small groups again, and I kind of put this principle, put this process, this part of the process to work. So in your small groups, I'm going to ask you to do one or two things. If you have time, you can do both. And that is, one is you can discuss something that you left behind because of a hurt. And as you look back, you want to bring it forward. What is your purpose for bringing it forward? In other words, how will you use it for the present? How will you use it for the present? And this is just under the thought or the philosophy that just because we were hurt doesn't mean that we were supposed to let go of everything. You know, just because we experienced hurt doesn't mean that the hurt had the hurt does not have the privilege of taking away what God still wants us to use or God still wants us to be. And so in your small group, I want to ask you to either discuss something that you left behind because of a hurt and how you can bring that forward and your purpose for bringing it forward, or you can discuss a lesson that you learned from a hurt and how you can use it now or in the future. So something that you left behind that you want to bring forward, or a lesson that you learned from a hurt and how you can use it now or in the future. So we did our small group discussion. And so last week we talked about, this process, and I just kind of revised the process to add the Sankofa piece in it. So we said the heal is to make healthy, whole, or sound, restore to health, free from ailment. And so, of course, there's praying consistently throughout the process. Again, we want to be able to accurately name what has happened so that we can accurately address it, name the pain and whatever those associated or the associated emotion is with that pain, name our response to that, what is the behavior, and name our desire. And even once we get our desire met, we're doing the work to heal it. Now, what is it that was left behind? What is it that was broken? What is it that was dismissed? Whatever that was, how can we bring it forward and use it in the present and the future? And here's this quote: "Healing doesn't mean the damage never existed. It means the damage no longer controls our lives." And those are two separate things, because sometimes, depending on what the pain or the hurt was, it leaves scars. And the scar is just a representation of, how we have moved forward. So when we heal, it doesn't mean that there never was any damage, but it does mean that the damage doesn't control us any longer. And usually, the way the damage controls us is generally either one or two, or a combination of our thoughts and our emotions. Because our thoughts and our emotions lead to some type of behavior. So when we are able to be healed, then our thoughts and our emotions are in a space where the damage is not in control anymore. And again, that's a process. And Romans 8:28, we know that all things work together for good for those who love God, who are called according to his purpose. And so whatever ups and downs, whatever valleys and mountains, whatever sunshine and rain, whatever peaks, whatever that we experience, whatever we go through, whatever we have associated with, we know that God is in the midst, and with God being in the midst, that we know that we can work through it. Okay, so we want to spend some time answering some of the questions. If you have questions, or if there's some questions in the chat.
All right, so Calvin is our chat room moderator. So Calvin, is there anything questions that came up for Dr. West?
We had one that came up just before the breakout session. Mm-hmm. And it said, what if the thing left behind, during the Sankofa process, what if the thing left behind was time specific, like an opportunity lost? What would you be bringing forward in that case? So
it may not be the thing, it may be the lesson. it may be the lesson that you bring forward, right? And so it may not be exactly that thing, because the lesson, one of the something that's associated with that thing is, particularly if it was time sensitive and time was lost, it can teach us how we value our time and use our time wisely. Because, and even in situations where we may not call it that, the hurt it hurt us, but, many times we have not taken advantage of the time and that opportunity was lost. And so it may teach us how to value our time in the present and in the future. Any other insight? And, anybody else will have any insight on that particular thought?
We did actually just have another couple questions pop up. The first one: staying where we are is often a lot more comfortable than doing the work of healing. Yeah. So how do you know when it's time to move?
Yeah, and let me just say, many people choose to stay where they are because it's a lot less work, and they are used to navigating in the pain. Because to do some healing processes really takes a lot of work, right? Because as Jamila talked about, one of the things is, right, you've got to reflect on it. You being taken back to it. And everybody has that choice. The challenge though is that when you stay in it, you're also making a choice to stay broken. And so the question would be, what would you look like whole? If, how better can you be for God to be the healed person that God wants you to be? Because even though we learn how to navigate it and we're comfortable in those boxes, it prevents us still from being whole in what God would want us to be. But yeah, all of us have our comfort zones. It doesn't even have to be a hurt situation. It just could be, this is the way I've operated, this is the way I've been doing this, and I prefer to stay like this. But there is a cost, though. There is a cost for not being whole. And for those of us who are adults, particularly when we have children, or you don't have to have children, it could be just children you're around, it could be the children of the church, it could be your nieces and nephews. Children are very perceptive. And a lot of stuff, for many of us, a lot of stuff that we learned from our mom and dad, it wasn't because they sat down and taught us, it's just because we saw them. We just saw them. I don't know if y'all like me. I remember when I got married, my wife had a quote in the frame, and it said, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, I am my mother after all." And many of us, when we were growing up, we were saying, "I ain't gonna be like my mom. I ain't gonna be like my daddy." And I know for myself, I have stopped myself in my tracks and said, "Oh man, that's the way my daddy would have done it," or "That's what my daddy said." Because unconsciously we pick up those things and we do those things. Same thing in the church. However you operate, for instance, however your worship service is on Sunday, whatever that is, it's because, and you are a part of that, you're a part of that because you learn to be whatever that culture says it should be. And then when people come in, if they act any different, nobody told them what the rules were, but everybody knows that ain't the way we do. That ain't. Yeah, but they just learn it just for, because we're being a part of that culture. So.
That's a great point. All right, we have one more question that popped up. What is the process of determining what is good and bad for you from the past? Sometimes we can't trust ourselves. There are some things in the past that felt good, but in the end may not be good.
Yes, and so this is where a trusted confidant can come into place. right? You know, I think all of us need people around us that are not yes people. We need people around us, you know. So a lot of times when we have friends, I tell people, if they are a friend of yours, it's not by longevity, but if it has been longevity, if they are a friend of yours, then y'all have been through something. Because you don't really know if anybody's your friend until you've been through something with them. You know, that's when you know they're your friend, when they come through. So we, you know, it's good to have people around us who can say to us, you know, excuse my language, you know, but Dr. West, your mess stinks. You know, that it stinks. I always want you to know it stinks. You know, I ain't gonna hold no, you know, that ain't right. We need some folk in our lives to be able to say it. That is not right. I don't care what you know, I have clergy friends right now that we do that with each other. You know, and I remember particularly when I was pastoring, you know, we would call each other up and say, you know, I'm thinking about doing this. They say, yeah, that's a great idea. Another time they would say, are you out of your mind? That, you know, we need folk like that in our lives. You know, because even a lot of times it's so much easier to say, this is what God told me to do, right? To justify what we want. But we need folk around us that can, you know, put the fire to the feet, to be able to help. Because I think that is true. We don't always know what is the best route to take or the best thing to do. And there's nothing wrong with that, because we're not perfect. And we, as individuals, we don't always have all the answers. You know, and I think that's another reason that God has gifted us differently, so our gifts can be there for one another. And we don't have to be, we don't have to be some isolated individual trying to make everything happen and do it right, or be perfect by ourselves. So I see some smiles in the group. I don't know, I must have said something.
It's what you didn't say.
Tell me, Michael.
Nah, you basically said, excuse my French, and then you said mess. Like we waiting for the French.
Michael, see, so the French is coming on the fourth try. When you go back the fourth time, the first time for the Father, the second time for the Son, the third time for the Holy Ghost, but the fourth time.
Okay. Well, and our Cornelius does that too. So that's
all right, Cornelius.
That's why we're laughing.
You my man, Cornelius.
All right, Dr. West, I do have one more question that popped up. It says, why is it that the thing that we said we would never become, we end up becoming? Like, why does that happen? What is that called?
Other than God? you know, because I think a lot of times when we say, for instance, because a lot of times when we say we don't want to do that, it's generally when we're younger and we don't have all the insights and information and knowledge about what that really is. We can only kind of interpret it with whatever information that we have. And the other part is when we're doing those kind of conversations, we're also doing that separately from saying, God, what do you want from me? You know, so a lot of times when we end up doing when we said that we were not going to do, it's also because we're answering and saying, God, I'll be what you want me to be. You know, we're yielding ourselves to God. And so, and then the other thing is, you know, so for instance, a lot of clergy, you know, even myself would, you know, said, you know, I don't want to be no clergy. And a lot of that was based on whatever we saw the clergy experiencing. I'm talking about the negative stuff we saw them experiencing. And so, who want, nobody's, I'm gonna say nobody because I don't like to be there, but most people won't say, I'm gonna jump into the negativity, because that's not what people want to do generally. And so generally when we say that, it's because a lot of the stuff that we see that is either negative, or we don't see that we have the capabilities or qualities to do that, or the skills to do that. You know, and then God shows up and says, I didn't call you because of who you thought you are. I called you who you are going to make you be.
So I asked that question, Dr. West. It was you put a positive on it. It was more of the, like, let's say your dad or mom was a person that was always fussing, right? And then you say, I'll never do that, you know, and then you end up being that, you know what I mean? Like and then you try to fight it, but it just like, it just happens. Like, and you're like, dang, I said I would never do this, or I never be that person, and you are that person, you know?
Yeah. Because, like, for instance, if you use that example, Cornelius, one of the things, for instance, if I see, you know, my parents fussing, what I'm not thinking about that time is they are teaching me how to communicate. And unconsciously, they're teaching me how to communicate. And so if I don't have any other models about that way to communicate, then that's what I'm going to do. You know, so even, you know, some folk who will say, you know, well, I'll never do this, I'll never do that. But until they're exposed to something different, you know, or have access to something different, you know, it's, you know, people say that all the time, and then they find themselves in the same situation, the same boat. And a lot of it is because they don't have any other exposure or access to something different to even know that there's something different to be, you know, to do or to be.
So Dr. West. Oh, so go ahead.
No. I'll let you go, Jamila.
Jamila's saying no. She said, go ahead, no.
Mine is not a question, more of a comment, and I think I got insight tonight while you were teaching. I think I have historically confused not hurting with being healed, and just because I'm not currently hurting doesn't mean I'm healed. And so, one of the slides you shared tonight was that you know you're healed when the things of your past don't control you anymore. And just because I'm not currently hurting, sometimes when I'm triggered, I realize that those things still have control, because not only do I have to revisit that same pain, it now has that same control that it once had on me.
Yeah. And
so I just wanted to share that I got some insight while you were teaching, and I oftentimes confuse not hurting with being healed.
Yeah. And that's some good insight, Pastor. That is some great insight, because the pain of the hurt may not be present, but the brokenness can still be there.
I was just going to say that, well, first of all, thank you for serving. Happy Veterans Day, and for all the others, veterans who've served. My dad served in Germany too, so you said that, I said, oh, they was crying there together. I don't know. That's how you tell somebody I went to Howard. Oh, you did? I'm from where year? 95? Like, you don't know all the people that went there, but anyway.
I know.
But I was just thinking about something that after Cornelius was saying. Like, yes, you say you don't want to do something that your parents did. I think it's important, though, that when you notice that you're doing exactly what your parents did, that you said you didn't want to do, that you make some effort in educating yourself on how not to be that way. Because like you said, or you get help, like some treatment, because we only know what we've been taught or shown or whatever, or it's just part of our DNA to be. And so once you recognize it, I think it's helpful to just kind of make the efforts to not be that way. And you can't just say, I'm gonna just do it, I'm gonna change. You gotta get help.
Yeah. And particularly, Jamila, you're talking about anything negative, right? If it's anything negative that doesn't, that's not beneficial. If it's, so a lot of what we have to do is, we've got to discern and make decisions. We have to do some discerning and make decisions about how we move forward.
Well, Dr. West, you have truly enlightened us, have helped us, have moved us into a place of understanding our hurt, how to process this hurt, and then how to move towards healing. Now, I know there might be, this kind of scratches the surface though, and that there might be more things that we may want to do. And so, is there a way that we can get in touch with you so that we can let partners know how, maybe they want to set up a session with you or something like that? If you could just like quickly give like your website or something like that, we'll put it in the chat so that people have it. Is there preferred?
Yeah, I will. I'll put my counseling number in the chat. How about that? Would that work?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, I think most people are muted, but I will speak on behalf of everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.